So I'm going to go into what happened with Donald Trump simply because it's interesting. I had just read probably 2 hours ago that he was convicted on, I think it was 12 felonies. It might have been 13 felonies. And the reason why I'm going to bring Donald Trump into the equation is because of the fact that he represents Christianity to a lot of people in the United States. He represents like this weird version of Christianity that focuses on like 5 topics, 5 things, 5 little commandments or something in the Bible, and they kind of dismiss like a lot of the stuff that I think is important. Most of them do. So it's like it becomes more of a cult to these people, and then it's like I think in a lot of ways they are trying to be the face of it, and I don't think they should be the face of it. I think they're hurting the religion more than they're helping it. Like, seriously, like I think that it's people like them that allow stuff like this to come into fruition, like what happens with me. So like it's kind of like if Jesus were here, how would things play out? Like how would he carry the religion? And they would really be on the opposite end of what he would be on. Like Jesus wouldn't be trying to raise $30 million for some, guy who was convicted of 13 felonies who was a billionaire. First off, like he just wouldn't. So as far as Trump, whether Trump is being mistreated or targeted or whatever, like I don't even know how that would be possible simply because he's super wealthy. He was elected the president. It seems like he has a lot of power. He has a lot of supporters. And when you're targeted, you don't have a lot of supporters or nothing. You don't have any supporters really. And I don't think that he, like if he went, like when he goes to court, like how every single thing could be working against him as if he's a TI. Another reason another reason why I like covering Trump is because Trump is saying that he is a targeted person. Think about it. He's claiming to be one of us because the way he's saying everything is working against him, like the election was rigged, and then he goes to court and it's rigged, and he went to court again, but the other time it was rigged. Think about it. So he gets sued in civil court, so that was rigged, and then he gets sued in criminal court, that was rigged, and then the election was rigged. And I'm just like, everything is rigged. Everything is rigged. You must be targeted. That's why he's kind of an interesting person to cover because he's claiming to be a TI. He actually is. So I'm thinking, okay, you're a targeted person, and you accomplished a lot because like you never really suffered. I mean, you were given how many? Like $30 million. He's claiming 30. I heard upwards of 50 or 100, but there's no way of knowing. Well, so he comes out of the door and he's super rich, and he had all these famous actresses, friends, and he had TV shows, and that is a lot to have when you're targeted. When you're targeted from the beginning. Like everything is going south from the start. Like you're not becoming a billionaire and coming up with TV shows. So he comes across as like this targeted person who's so persecuted. And then he turns around and says, I can save you because we're all so desperate, right? Like a person like me who's being targeted. So this, would feel desperate. And then it's like, so we're desperate. So he comes along as a messiah figure and saying, oh, I'll save everybody. And I'm thinking, you couldn't even save yourself. So how can you save anybody else? Because first off, when you were the president the first time, you didn't save anybody. You really didn't. You couldn't save yourself from civil lawsuits. You said they were unfair, so you couldn't protect yourself from that. You couldn't protect yourself from criminal lawsuit. You couldn't protect yourself from a rigged election. You couldn't protect anybody during your first term. Nothing changed. The gangstalkers, they were celebrating when Trump got elected. They thought it was great. So what? He protected nobody. He did nothing. He had a whole entire 4 years to do something and didn't do anything. So then, after being convicted, and he's saying, well, I'm targeted, like I'm you, essentially, and I need $30 million. And I was like, okay, so you're me, but that doesn't explain why you need money. You need money for legal expenses because you're a billionaire. So I don't understand why a billionaire needs to raise money. So Christians, these so-called quote unquote Christians, would raise money for a billionaire, and they wouldn't raise money for me, or they wouldn't raise money for Stephen Maddow, They wouldn't raise money for any of the people like us. If they had raised money for us, we might have been able to hire lawyers and sue people and protect ourselves, right? I mean, if you have that kind of money, let's assume they raised millions of dollars for us. We could start filing lawsuits against people and protecting ourselves. Like, I could go to these places and start suing them for doing stuff to me because I'd have a high-priced lawyer who would do it. So I could protect myself. I could feed myself. I could take care of myself. And instead of that, they would say, well, if you were wrongly convicted of stuff, which obviously, you know, like I said, as a targeted person, every conviction is basically wrongful conviction. If any trouble happens, it's because of the gang stalkers. I don't ever do anything wrong intentionally and never did. Like, if I got into trouble and had to go to court, believe me when I tell you, if I'm in court, it's not because I intentionally did it, or I was guilty of it. So that's how I do things. But as I said, targeted and, you know, how the system works. So Trump is almost saying he's us. And I'm thinking, well, first off, I don't understand, like, this whole thing with Jesus saying give to the poor and not give to the billionaires. Like, I don't think Jesus would go to the richest person on the planet and then say all Christians need to give the richest person on the planet money. Like, and then there would be poor Christians, like Lazarus from the Bible. And then he's like, the poor Christians, don't give them anything like this. All Christians should focus on giving billionaires money. Like, because they were found guilty of crimes and they got a shot and had good lawyers and went to court and still was found guilty and it's all rigged. But then you had this poor guy like Lazarus from the Bible, and he can't get any lawyer and he can't, nothing could go wrong. And if he's just screwed, he's basically screwed. He'll be in jail, and he has to be, if you go to jail, if he's found guilty, he has to be in a cell with a criminal, and everything has to go wrong for him. And that's fine. Instead, give money to the billionaire. So they have turned what Jesus would do, and they have turned from that and then into something that's completely just despicable. It's despicable. That's why I have no respect. And I talked about this in other earlier vlogs for the church, period. No respect. The church, with all the people who claim to be Christians, who every single day sit back and watch me in misery, and they don't lift a finger to make things better. You think they do a GoFundMe or something to help me out? Not even the people on the channel do anything. Nobody does anything. Nobody gives anything. Nobody cares. But their guy Trump, and I'm thinking, well, if Trump was poor, sure, he's a Christian, he's poor, he's literally poor, he's, you know, he can barely feed himself, and oh man, he's suffering. They would give a billionaire, someone who's claiming to have at least $4 billion, they would give him money and not give us anything, and then say that it was the Christian thing to do. So if they didn't say it was the Christian thing to do, I wouldn't have an opinion on it. But they are literally putting that message out there. So I'm going to put a message out there. That is the most despicable thing I've ever heard of. This guy can fund his own legal defense if he's a billionaire. And instead of saying, hey, look, this guy's suffering, why don't we help him out? What did this guy do to earn $30-40 million other than say, I'm just Donald Trump and I'm a billionaire? How is that earning this money did they give him? When it's us, they're coming up with excuses talking about how we're not working hard enough. I was like, well, I should have been convicted of 13 felonies. And I guess you would have felt like I was worthy of getting money at that point. They'd say, oh, wow, well, no one deserves to get $30-40-50 million more than you for being convicted of 13 felonies. That's their logic. That's their logic. The entire country is a circus show. This is why people like me have checked out, because we just cannot tolerate this circus. It's all just some big joke to everybody. It's a big joke. My religion has become a joke. The people are a joke. It's all this big circus show. It's pathetic. So I figured I would cover that because I don't want people to be deceived. Like, if you're trying to be a Christian, do not look at these circus people and try to sort of, put us all in this one box. Like, I'm a circus clown, and we're all just doing this this nonsense. So I am me, and I think you can look at me, you can look at Jesus, but do not box us all into that box. Okay. So with that said, let me close.